And welcome back to episode 87 of the Weekly Tech Rant with me, Jay.
And me, Carl.
Oh, it's off again. Crazy thing.
And repeat.
Oh, gremlins in the system again. This is what happens when you leave it late to record. Oh, terrible. So anyway, we are back then for episode 87. I can't believe we are moving in nearly close to the 90th episode and soon to be hundreds. And before you know it, we'll have had 2 years of the Weekly Tech Rant. I can't believe how far we've come. So this week then, this week's been an interesting week, I suppose, isn't it? It's for myself, at least, it's been a return to in-person conferences for my particular, outside of podcasting work, which was interesting to say the least, of seeing over 1,000 people in the same place, and no masks, apart from those that choose to wear them, of course, and COVID precautions. But for all intents and purposes, it was like nothing had changed. You know what I mean? 2 years back. Crazy
I'm jealous,
stuff.
I must admit. The thought of getting on a plane and going out and seeing people, would love it.
Hey, look, the flying piece, now I've done a few of those flights in the last couple of weeks. It was all good. It's great to be back on a plane, getting the iPad out, that bit of in-flight Wi-Fi now and then when it works or when it doesn't. What I will say, however, is the, not tech related, but man, the queues at Schiphol Airport in Amsterdam the other day were, I've never seen a queue that is a kilometre long, which I was told by one of the staff there when they apparently, based on the length of the terminal buildings, and of course they'd looped it back a couple of times. That is nuts. Absolutely.
Wow. Well, I'm meant to be going there at the end of June for a work shindig. So hopefully they've got the queue sorted out by then.
Yeah, hopefully they've re-employed staff at that point rather than a technology issue, because their technology is pretty good at Schiphol, in all fairness. So they've got the more of the high-end security scanners that you don't have to take anything out of your bags anymore. So
wow.
Yeah, and when I was waiting, you can see the assistants, the people working on the screens the other side, and it's really close. It's like a CAT scan with 3D models, 3D models of your luggage that they can spin, turn, look at it from many angles, and far more complex and clear than I guess you'd see on the earlier generation of X-ray machines, or not X-ray, they're more CAT like scanners these days, aren't they, than X-ray. To do that, but yeah, very cool. Apparently Heathrow is meant to be getting those so they can speed up the things.
That'd be good.
But anyway, I digress. Right, we have got a packed show for you this week. We're going everywhere from Sonos to Finland to tax to Sony to Fortnite. Yes, Fortnite. Plus, we're going to talk a little bit about Match Group. No, we're not going to be looking at the apps. We're just going to talk about them. And of course, AMD have released their latest RX 6950 card, which we'll talk about. And plus, we're going to show you, or talk about at least, because this is a podcast, not a video podcast, one of the craziest tech demo videos we've seen in a long time, which is based on the Unreal 5 engine. And of course, the Tech Rant Rumor Mill is back for the latest update. And as we get closer to WWDC, I suspect we'll see more of the iOS 16 and other rumors come closer in the next couple of weeks as well. But let's get started this week then with Sonos, who are they're making their own voice assistant, which is not a statement I thought I'd probably say.
No, but I suppose all their S2 compatible speakers have all come with microphones in for quite some time now, haven't they? And you've been able to use Alexa or Google's Assistant. Well, it was when I wrote my notes, it was speculation, but it was actually confirmed yesterday or the day before, but that they will, on the 1st of June, be releasing an update for the S2 compatible speakers. It's going to bring their own voice assistant. So, so you'll be able to choose theirs, store Alexa or Google. It's called Sonos Voice Control. It's going to work with Apple Music, Amazon, Pandora, Deezer, and obviously Sonos' own, is it Sonos Radio they call it?
That's
and
the
Sonos
one, yeah.
Radio HD, I think it's their premium one of it, but it's not got Spotify or YouTube music support yet.
No, and I'll be honest with you, given how voice assistants are these days, I'm surprised they've gone down this route, given the fact of even the big players like Microsoft didn't have much success, did they, with Cortana? Sorry to say that.
But no, I suppose their pitch is privacy, though. It basically says the feature won't record users' audio commands or relay them to the cloud.
How are they going to learn from it?
I presume they're using some kind of neural engine like Apple does.
Okay, fair enough.
On device kind of thing.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you. I mean, I've never been a big fan on the speakers themselves. I'm not don't typically use the voice systems too often. I have, Shoe cannot be mentioned on a particular pod device in front of me here.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't necessarily go out of my way to be using it all the time. But I guess if you've got Sonos and you've got the S2 devices, then this is probably something you use today, or at least want to. And yeah, if you're right, if it's going to be integrated nicely with the other Sonos features like radio, then it's probably going to work quite well, better than perhaps Google Assistant, or the other word, the A
Yeah,
word.
because it's not a general purpose voice assistant. It's very much focused on music, so pausing, playing, finding those tracks. So it's I suppose a lot less advanced than things like the Apple one and the Amazon one and the Google one.
Definitely. So this is coming then. When did you say, was it 1st of June? Was that
1st of June is meant to be the update to the software, and it'll go live on any of the S2 compatible speakers.
okay? Because they've got a new device coming out, haven't they, as well? Is there a new soundbar? I think is that due
There
soon.
is. I think that was announced as well. I can't remember what they call it, but that's their low-cost soundbar, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. So, okay, moving on then. I guess we also have another acquisition this week then with
We do.
Intel, and picking up a Finnish company I've never heard of. But
No.
let's be honest, there's a lot of companies I've not heard of. But so what's this? Siru Innovations then, isn't it? Who are a graphics development company, I understand.
Yeah, and I presume they're nothing to do with Saru from Star Trek Discovery.
No, that would be really weird if they were, but I'm guessing not.
No, but they are some graphics GPU development house. They kind of develop high-level APIs all the way down to low-level GPU architectures. So there's some kind of graphics design house.
So this is definitely in line with the ARC development, isn't it? And especially as Intel move into the more of the discrete market, and looking at how they can get, I guess, more bang for buck versus the existing Nvidias, AMD, of course, and all that as well. But so these guys have been around for quite a while. I don't think they're particularly new, are they? Though.
No, they have been. They're a small company. We don't know how much they were purchased for. But yeah, they've been around for quite a while. They're going to be joining Intel's. Is it their Accelerated Computer Systems and Graphics Group? Basically, the ones responsible for Intel Arc and Battlemage and Celestial and all that kind of stuff.
And also, I was kind of, when I was reading about these guys, they also, well, not Suru themselves, but where the kind of area they work in is also linked to a lot of the high performance computing as well.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah, so and Intel, are competing heavily at the moment, aren't they, against AMD and Nvidia, especially in that HPC area. That's the word I couldn't get it out.
Yep.
We're seeing a lot of that today, especially with the intensive compute work, the intensive graphics work, with the GPUs, isn't it? The Nvidia are doing with the ML and AI kind of capabilities, which I'm guessing Intel want a piece of that market again, don't they? Get back into it, into data centers.
What do they call their data center ones? Is it Arctic Sound, isn't it? Arctic Sound.
We had a look at them, didn't we? Yeah.
That was it. Yeah, nothing to do with sound, but we're going to put sound in the title.
No, that was it. We were completely thrown, weren't we, by the Arctic? Yeah, that was it. The Arctic Sound.
I was like, they're making a sound card.
Yeah, that was it. Arctic Sound which they built, isn't it, for AI workloads, data center acceleration, that kind of stuff, and kind of training. I guess machine learning frameworks and things. A bit like, I suppose, what's the Google one? The Tensor engine, isn't it?
Tensor, yeah.
That's the same sort of concept, yeah. But so these guys then have been acquired. And I was reading, there was kind of a weird link, wasn't there, to AMD through one of the original founders.
The guy, he was part of ATI, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Who then AMD bought and turned into AMD's graphics division. But that was a long time ago.
Yeah, we're talking like over sort of 16 years ago. But he had a company called BitBoys, didn't he? Which I thought was a great name.
What a name.
Which, as you say, was acquired by ATI and then purchased by AMD back in 2006. So what comes around goes around.
I suppose it's going to be a small world in a GPU design, isn't it?
I would imagine so. There is not going to be too many ways to do different architecture and approaches. And I guess if you work in that environment, you're going to know the people in the other companies, aren't you? Because you're going to move between them, I suppose, in that sense.
You did. So I think they were saying from the report that they're going to be helping with Celestial and beyond So obviously there's not going to be a quick fix here. Not that we've seen any GPUs that may potentially need fixing, but it's going to be more of a long-term game. Celestial's going to be 2 years away at least.
Okay. Well, I guess again, this is groundwork, isn't it, for what they want to be doing, and
just shows they're investing in it.
Yeah, and those Arctic Sound, I don't think those Arctic Sound GPUs are available yet either. I know they've been up. There was another announcement about them, but I don't necessarily think that you can go out and buy them.
I did see some announcement that GPUs are going to be delayed, but I didn't get a chance to write down the notes.
Yeah, there you go. Exactly. Yeah, point being, exactly. All right then. So, tax, Carl, you did you get the thing from Her Majesty's Revenue and Customs the other day about them doing a self-assessment? Which is
I did. But I'm waiting for my P60s and P11Ds to turn up from multiple companies before I can do anything. So it might be months before I can even start on that one.
Well, this is it. So I did. So in the UK, obviously, if anybody's listening from outside the UK and thinking, "What are you guys on about?" Well, if for certain reasons, whether that be how much you're paid, or whether you're you run your own company, or whatever reason it might be, you have to do
a non-standard year when it's come to your job.
Yes, you have to do a tax return. Basically, that's what a self-assessment is—a tax return. And here in the UK, it's completely free to do. You can do it online through the HMRC website. It's all self-calculated. You can use software, can't you, if you want to do it? But
never had a need to, but you can.
Never had a need to. But of course, our friends over in America, tax time is a big part of every year, isn't it, for pretty much everybody?
Oh, it is.
And the IRS, want their cut of whatever you're earning and make sure you're going to pay it. And there seems to be like a million different offerings, isn't there, of tax software that you can get to help you with that, or I guess do the hard lifting for you.
Yeah.
And one of those is TurboTax, which again,
Intuit. Awesome. Yeah, they've been around for a long time, haven't they?
Yeah, they're not new at all. I think you can get them over here, can't you, as well, in the UK? I'm sure they probably have European offers as well, but turns out that they've been a little bit sneaky, haven't they, around their offerings on what they were providing. Which
they have. So the IRS for a little while now has offered, and we're potentially wrong on this, we're not in America, but my understanding they've offered something called the Free File Program, which basically you could use multiple bits of different tax software from different companies like Intuit, and they had an agreement with the US government to provide this software for free to help facilitate it, so you could file your taxes for free. Well, Intuit's not been playing nice, have they? They were part of this program, but they've been doing the old bait and switcheroo. So allegedly not allegedly, it's been proved, between 2016 and 2018, it said they did the bait and switch. Basically, they were advertising the free software, but they were actually advertising the freemium one for a very, very similar name. So that when you went to their site, you clicked the free one that wasn't, filled in all your tax stuff, and then when it went time to submit it, they were like, and this is what it's going to cost you to submit it. And they were hiding the free tax program, weren't they?
Sneaky, isn't it? I mean,
they even removed it from Google search results, didn't they, at certain times of the year, so that you couldn't get to the free one unless you somehow knew the exact URL.
And I mean, I probably get shot for saying this, but from my understanding is that the IRS tax returns aren't that straightforward. I think there's quite a bit of data you need to put on there. So for a lot of people, these software tools are lifesavers, aren't they? And if you need to put that back in, or you need to put your tax return in, you're going to want to do it in the most easy way, aren't you? And
you could have spent months doing this, don't to find out that it's not the free one you've been putting it in.
No. And if you let's be honest, this software's not cheap either. So if you're offered that, and then you'll be paying money for something which you could have got for free, that's not going to work. That's a global level scam size, isn't it? Really?
Well, it is. And apparently all 50 US states and I don't know why it's phrased that way, and the District of Columbia.
Anyway, how long that?
I don't know why they're separate, but they've come to an agreement.
They're not a state. You can't have because remember the capital cannot be in a state because it would then have bias, wouldn't it? So the District of Columbia was carved off from I think Virginia and Maryland, and that's why DC is where it is.
Sorry, I knew it had to be something like it. I just couldn't quite figure it out. But anyway, so they've all, along with the New York Attorney General's office, they found Intuit guilty of this. They forced them to pay $141 million back to customers, and it's for deceiving millions of low-income Americans into paying for tax services that should have been free. They've also been forced to suspend its free ad campaign for TurboTax that basically baited customers with the promise of free tax preparation and switched them into a paying service. Now, this is what I was like, okay, yeah, they've been bad. But this is what got me. and actually, I suppose shocking no one, Intuit have released a statement expressing zero regret, and said and the required ad changes would have little impact on the business. I mean, the statement is, as part of the agreement, Intuit admitted no wrongdoing and agreed to pay 141 million to put this matter behind it. Made certain commitments regarding its advertising practices, but pretty much that was, we don't care.
That is absolutely, we don't care, and fine, we'll pay the fine, whatever. We'll just make it go away. So what I think this works out, isn't it? About $30 per person for each tax year that they were affected, isn't it? So it's not a lot of money, but I guess if you coughed up and you shouldn't have done, then
it's something back. But I don't know what TurboTax were charging them in the first place. So
no,
is it £30 for each year? That's what TurboTax charged them, or TurboTax charging more? And therefore, I don't know.
So the IRS then had this free file system then, didn't they? That they had several of the companies got involved with. So basically giving the most simple option is to file tax. They had to abide by the rules that the IRS set out, which was no advertising, wasn't it, as well? And they had to I rephrase that. Sorry, they couldn't hide it in like Intuit have done. They had to make it available and publicize the fact they had a free version, didn't they?
Yeah.
And then the naming convention was IRS free file program delivered by I don't know, insert name of company to do that. So which obviously Intuit basically I thought were, well, we're not doing that because we're going to lose a load of revenue, so we need to offer that back.
But I'm sure the US government must have paid these companies to provide this software.
Well, you'd have thought so, wouldn't you?
You can't really require companies to do it for free off their own bat just because you said so. I imagine they must have been paying them some money for this, but Intuit thought we'll double dip here.
Definitely a bit of double dipping going on. I mean, I'm guessing though that the free version here was to try and, I guess, remove some of that stress, wasn't it, around the the tax return piece, and giving the fact that this software is free, so if you're low income or you don't have to do it, we want to make it help. We want to help you because ultimately by helping you we get more money, isn't it?
And they help themselves because it costs them less money of chasing people if they've used the free software and it's submitted in the right format. It's less work all round.
But that's because this is a bit I find really weird, though, isn't it? There are several laws, and I'm probably going to trip myself up here, but I'm sure there's a weird thing about you have to use certain software to file the taxes. So there are only some companies that can do it, hence the reason they've got this agreement.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah, it's very weird, very complicated. To be honest with you, I'm not suggesting tax in our country is any easier, but it certainly sounds a hell of a lot less complicated than our American friends.
Oh, definitely.
So, moving away from tax to
the FCC to the FTC.
Oh, I like it. Nice segue there, Carl. Nice segue. So, right then. So, how long ago? I think it must be a couple of months ago, wasn't it? We talked about Sony had acquired Bungie. Actually, it was shortly after I'm sure it was after the Bethesda acquisition by Microsoft, wasn't it?
Or was it after the Activision one?
Or was it Yeah, one of the two. But Sony announced that obviously they were acquiring Bungie games, and the FTC kind of stuck their head above the parapet and were like, "Are you now?" Following the statement from Sony that they would not make any of the games exclusive to the Sony platform, would they? They would allow them to be used on consoles, and it wouldn't be PlayStation exclusive. Seems they're not convinced, though, from what I can gather from the latest statement from the FTC.
I mean, we chatted about this when Microsoft bought PlayStation, didn't we? And we talked about, well, potentially they could make them exclusives to Games Pass at Xbox PC, take them off PlayStation. Microsoft had promised they weren't going to do it. Apparently that was good enough for the FCC, but apparently Sony's promises aren't as good as Microsoft's.
Well, I'm glad you said that because that is exactly my whole point. Is I don't get how Microsoft's acquisition of a much larger organization with a much larger IP base, therefore bigger impact if it did do exclusivity, versus Bungie and Sony, where they're not clearly the market leader at this time, and how that worked. But you're right, it just seems kind of one rule for one rule for the other. Surely Sony must be thinking that. You'd imagine, wouldn't you?
They must be, but then, if we're honest, recently Sony do not have a good track record, like Apple, of playing well with others.
No, they don't. That's
I
a
mean,
fair
look at
point.
all the stuff that came out in the
The
Epic
Epic,
Apple
yeah,
case
yeah.
about Sony and crossplay and stuff like that,
Well,
and it was
their whole licensing,
just
wasn't it?
underhand
Yeah,
and dirty, wasn't it?
yeah.
So that's potentially why the FCC's gone. I'm not entirely convinced by your argument here.
No, and yeah, you're right. There's clearly more to this than perhaps has been publicly shown, and yeah, they're very much they're very they're very concerned, aren't they? And it
They
does
are
seem though that the US government now is starting to have a deep look at these high profile acquisitions, is it? Especially if the game
indeed. Well,
industry is leading that way with multi-billion-dollar acquisitions. And
yeah,
we had some quite senior US senators send a letter to the FTC chairwoman back in March of this year, talking around the acquisitions that happened. Activision in particular was called out, wasn't it?
yeah,
And whether or not they were protecting the rights and the dignity of the workers in those companies. That was the right word. Around anti-competitive actions in the labour market and also in business. And Activision themselves actually had a whole heap of problems, didn't they, with employee concerns, wasn't there, around
they did. Yeah,
well, HR issues is probably the best way to describe it, I suppose, isn't it?
yeah. I mean, so obviously, yeah, definitely. I know they had that talk. I know Biden introduced a new law in July last year, executive order, giving the FTC the power to enforce antitrust laws fairly and vigorously. But it also makes me wonder, doing all this about gaming companies buying, or Microsoft buying a gaming company, Sony buying more gaming companies. There's been none of this about the movie industry. I mean, look how many studios people like Disney have eaten up in recent years.
Yeah, or look at Amazon with the MGM acquisition.
Exactly, and yeah, not and I blinked about that one. Is that just because they're paying the congressman more money to look the other way and look at Microsoft instead or Sony instead?
I don't know. It's a good point because that it isn't the only people that do acquisitions. You're right, but I think the tech industry, which gaming obviously falls into, is one of the few industries where there are acquisitions of this size and scale, isn't it? That's the thing.
Yeah, that's
Uh,
true.
I think if it was 64 million, rather than 64 billion, if we look at one of the
Yeah,
Microsoft ones, you've got to admit there's going to be a different viewpoint of that, isn't there?
there is. Yeah,
Especially
64
from a
million wasn't
government
worth
perspective.
paperwork.
No, the 64 billion. Oh, hang on a minute. Let's have a chat about how this is going to work. Monopolies now, isn't it? And
Yeah,
I think that's a concern. And the workers' rights. That's what I think the argument, particularly around the Activision one, was around workers' rights, wasn't it? It was around how they were treated. It was around concerns around toxic leadership and other areas. So,
and hopefully Microsoft can fix that part.
well, you'd like to think so, but it's not going to be an overnight fix, is it at all?
Oh no, definitely
But with
not.
Sony, at least, this is going to probably cause them some issues, or whether or not this deal is going to close, because it hasn't. It could delay it by 6 months, it's said.
Yeah,
And I don't know. It does seem that Sony are getting probably the raw end of the deal here compared to Microsoft
I think so.
with
Yeah,
their acquisitions. But who knows? We'll keep an eye on this. As I say, it could take 6 months to rumble through. I have a feeling it probably will go ahead, given the fact of Microsoft and its acquisitions. It would probably there'd be one hell of a legal argument to challenge it, unless the
yeah,
FTC have got something that we don't know about, which is likely. But we'll keep an eye on that. But talking of anti-competitive behavior, then it turns out you can now play Fortnite on your iPhone or Android now, aren't you? Totally
oh
free,
yeah.
but not from the App
Epic
Store.
wins.
Epic
Not
wins. Tim Sweeney
kind
wins.
of, maybe. Well, yeah, I say it's back on iOS, it's back on Android, but it's. Do you see Microsoft's xCloud? So they're game streaming, aren't they? They've obviously
Yeah,
come to some kind of deal with Microsoft because you don't need to be a Game Pass subscriber. So you can't buy xCloud by itself at the moment. You can only get it as part of Game Pass Ultimate, can't you? Which comes with the PC, the Xbox, and then the xCloud streaming. But you don't need to
yeah.
be a subscriber.
No,
Microsoft's saying as long as you've got a Microsoft account and a browser, good to go. Log on, stream Fortnite for free.
well, because it's the first free-to-play title to join Xbox Cloud Gaming. I managed to get that word out, and it's available, I think, in 26 countries at the moment, isn't it?
It is
So
indeed,
full
yeah.
global. And I have to say, this is quite funny considering the whole Epic argument, the whole Apple lawsuit. and now you've got Tim Sweeney. I nearly said Twin Tweeny. Tim Sweeney.
Trying to start Putty Cat. I did.
Yes, I did. Tim Sweeney tweeting back last week, wasn't it? Saying, I quote, "Monumental news for everyone. Fortnite available to play for free, streaming to web browsers on iPhone, iPad, and Android." I mean, if he could have stuck 2 fingers up at Tim Cook, I think he would have done.
This is a funny bit, because I was reading the article, and I think this came out in the Epic case, because obviously Microsoft were involved in that, and there was communication shown to the court, and Microsoft had already offered to do this before he got into all this hoo-ha with Apple, but he ignored that and carried on with his plan anyway.
Yeah, but I think because they'd gone so far down that road with the Apple lawsuit, they couldn't stop it. It was like a train, wasn't it? Once they get rolling, there was no way you could get it. The driver had leapt off, and it was just a case of we're going to have to let it run its course.
We're stuck on this one now.
But I don't know. I mean, but I think wasn't there a piece though from Epic, from one of their VPs of business, saying that they thought that the Microsoft offering was competitive to what they were trying to do on PC through the Epic Store. But I'm guessing that argument's gone now. Then they.
Epic don't have a streaming platform, do they?
No, but they did have it on PC, I suppose, is their point being, and maybe they were concerned.
Yeah, they did.
They were concerned it would work that way, but yeah, so it's now there. You can have it on there. Obviously, there was an Android app, wasn't there, for Fortnite? So that that wasn't like it hadn't been there.
Yeah.
But now it's available. But Nvidia must be quite annoyed, because didn't Nvidia have this on their GeForce on beta?
They did indeed. Now? Yeah, they do.
So where does this leave them?
It's still there, and it's not going away. But obviously, GeForce Now is a paid service. Well, mind you, xCloud is a paid service, but let's say Epic have obviously come to a deal and paid, I'm guessing, Microsoft handsomely for this.
Well, they must have done, yeah. I guess there's clearly some greenbacks have changed hands somewhere on the line. But so you can have it then on GeForce Now.
Yeah.
Is that through the app or is that through the web browser? I can never remember.
Does GeForce Now work through a web browser?
No, it's just an app.
I can't remember. It's an app, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I don't know. I looked at it many years ago and haven't really looked at it again since.
No, I haven't. I think when they first beated it, I had a look at
it.
Because you could link your Steam library, couldn't you? There were some games you could play, and I never followed up on that at all myself. But interesting. So, question I have to ask then: you going to give it a go?
No.
Fair enough.
just no. I'm not a Fortnite person.
No. I have enough. We have enough problem with kids in Battlefield. I'm not gonna subject myself to that hell.
No,
not at all. All right then. So you may recall a few weeks, in fact, a couple months ago, we were talking about how in the Netherlands, Apple was being sued by the Dutch government, wasn't it, around payment.
Yep.
Offerings for particularly dating applications to allow alternative payment methods in there rather than the in-app purchases. And they were dragging their heels. And what we up to 50? I think we got up to 50 million euro, didn't we, in terms of fines?
That was a month or so ago.
And it wasn't it?
They're still dragging their heels, Apple, aren't they?
Yeah. So, but not to be left out whatsoever. Google themselves now are being sued by Match Group, who offer you the popular and probably diversity of dating apps such as Match, OkCupid, and everybody's favorite Tinder. Isn't that the one where you swipe left and right? I think it's Tinder.
That's the one. I love a swipe.
I trust me. I only say it because I have no idea. I've never used it.
Allegedly, that's what happens. Yeah.
Well, that's what you're hearing, isn't it? I swiped right or left. I'm guessing that's what the deal with it is anyway. But so Match Group. Who, by the way, I didn't realize Match actually owned them. I thought they were separate. But anyway.
Oh, they're big. They own a lot of different ones.
They do. So they're now suing Google, aren't they, over restricted billing on the Play Store, and which is brilliant because this particular complaint is based off the Epic lawsuit against Apple in 2020 around Apple's anti-competitive behavior, isn't it?
It is. They're only doing it now. So Google, their argument is basically Google lured app developers into its platform with assurance that they could offer, they could choose which payment process they wanted to use, which, in all fairness, Google did at the beginning. But now Google are changing to an Apple thing that everyone has to use the Google payment processor, don't they, for their in-app stuff? Unless you're Spotify, then there's some beta going on of I don't know. The beta, I think, is using Spotify's own payment processor, or back end, but Google are doing the front end. I'm not sure what's going on. Some weird thing about it. But obviously, Match weren't invited to that, and they're getting a bit shitty now, which I can kind of understand. You started on that platform, you could use your own ones, and now Google are saying, nope, you've got to use ours. But Google's rebuttal to this is brilliant. And it brought up stuff I didn't realize was happening. Google are basically saying, this is just a continuation of Match Group's self-interested campaign to avoid paying for the significant value they receive from the mobile platforms they built their business on. Like any business, we charge for our services. So the same kind of argument Apple are going, there needs to be some kind of payment for the App Store. But then go on to say, and like any reasonable platform, we protect our users against fraud and abuse in apps. Match Group is currently attracting regulatory concern over things like deceptive subscription practices, and with this filing, they continue to put money ahead of user protection. Ooh. So I wasn't aware of the last part that Match Group is currently having issues about their practices.
I love that. That's kind of like the legal department going, all right then, fine. You want to play hardball?
We'll throw it back.
Yeah, here you are. Scoop it back up and lob it back at them, isn't it? Like, yeah. Oh, by the way, we know about what you're in trouble for.
Yeah, exactly. So, this one's going to be interesting, I think.
I think so. And it turns out, though, as well, that Match Group also pay 15% on Apple Play for digital subscriptions, which is very low. They kind of pointed that out, didn't they? They were like, we're not charging.
And the same on Google's own platform as well. They're paying only 15%. So they've already got a good deal. I'm right. The developers should be paying something for Google's and Apple's platforms. This stuff doesn't come free to Google and Apple.
You've built, and in a lot of cases,
a lot of money into that.
And you've built a business off the back of that, haven't you?
Yeah. Now, I don't agree it should be 30%. Definitely not.
No.
I think 15% is a fair amount.
Yeah, I think so.
Maybe go as low as 10, but I think no less than 10. They are still providing a service that you use.
No different. It's no different to Amazon offering the ability to, but you use a third-party seller, isn't it? So it's a third-party seller through Amazon. You're leveraging Amazon's application, their warehousing, their distribution network, and therefore. You should pay something towards that. Surely that's the case of any business, isn't it? Where you're leveraging a service.
Even eBay and traditional auction houses, you pay a cut of your final sale price to the auction house.
Yeah, it's just
even on eBay. Sometimes you think, I've sold that for a bit of money, and then you look at the eBay fees and you go, darn. And then you look at the PayPal fees to get your money out afterwards. You're like, wow, not as good as I thought.
You kind of when you I had to flick through the document, not all of it because a lot of it's legalese and kind of painful, but I get the feeling Google has got the higher ground here at the moment. I think given the current laws and how it stands and the outcome from the Epic case, I think Google are probably in a stronger position than Match themselves are.
Yeah, imagine that Google and Apple flipped it on the head and said, okay, we're not going to take a percentage cut of your sale, but we're now going to charge you a hosting fee for the app. Yeah. We're going to charge you transfer fees for the data every time someone downloads it, every time there's an update. I'm guessing you're going to be paying a lot more that way than you will for your cut of subscription. Yeah. And they'd lose their minds over it. You're doing what? You can't do that.
No, I mean, this isn't; these are not new at all. I just, given the situation, and clearly Match Group here, if there's other regulatory issues going on with them, this could get quite ugly. I think, because that may shine a light, as they say, isn't it? On it, but I think that quote was that quote you had, wasn't it? I just could pull it out of my notes here. That one around, this is just a continuation of Match Group's self-interested campaign to avoid paying for significant value they receive from mobile platforms they build with. That was like, basically, you've built your business off the back of us. We are not here.
You're not, basically, because you're currently paying nothing for us to host and distribute your app.
Yeah, basically, your success is partly down to us. Isn't it really?
Exactly, because I imagine they've really exploded, especially things like Tinder with mobile.
Oh,
you've got it on you all the time. It's not like the old days when they first started. And you had to go wait till you got home, or you got not necessarily at work, but you had to wait till you got home to fire up your PC or your laptop, log on to a traditional website to go and do it. Yeah.
No, but from what I understand, I think Tinder's mobile only anyway, isn't it?
I think that is.
Then,
I mean, the traditional
yeah, but
Match.com and stuff like
no,
that are
no,
still.
but but you're right. Once they went to mobile, that explosion, as you say, in accessibility to their market, their consumers, yeah, like any of them, it's there. It's huge, absolutely huge in that sense. Ah, deep breath, deep breath. Another lawsuit on the horizon. Probably not quite to the same standards of Epic versus
Epic
Apple, but
Apple, yeah.
certainly, certainly not going to be quiet anyway.
We've not
All
heard
right
anything about
then.
the Epic versus Google one, have we? Because aren't they suing them at the same time? But that's gone quiet.
Yeah, but I wonder whether or not that was kind of brushed under the carpet at the same time with Apple, maybe.
Maybe.
All right. So then, before we get into the last couple of bits, then AMD then have dropped from on high a new card in the 6900 family, haven't they? 6950 XT in all black
range, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is, I suppose, what, the competitor to a 3090 Ti, isn't it? So
yeah, it's kind of high end.
Brought that out in March, I want to say. So this is their competitor, but they announced it the other day. We've seen pricing; it's about $100 more than the 6900, but it is coming at $1,099.
I know that. Ouch! I kind of saw that, and there was a wince.
Oh. But yeah. I mean, looking at the specs, it's not a big upgrade. But I suppose the 3090 Ti wasn't either. You've got the same number of compute engines, ray accelerators, stream processors, the same 16 gig of GDDR6. You've got a slight GPU speed boost up by 85 megahertz. They boosted the RAM by up by 2 gigabits a second. The boost speed is up by another 60 hertz. Of course, the power's up from 300 to 335 watts, but it's just a minor boost. But
that's the bit I didn't get. Was you're right. It just looks like somebody's overclocked a card.
It's an pre-overclocked card, but we've seen some early benchmarks from one person that's put them out. They've tested the 3090 Ti, the 6900 and the 6950 XT, all on the same rig apparently, and they used 3D Mark, their time spy benchmark. And man, it's trouncing the 3090 Ti. So we had the 6900 XT, the original one, coming in at 18,400 odd points, whatever we're going to call them. The 3090 Ti was top of the pack. Yeah, the 3090 Ti was coming in at 20,855 points. But yeah, the new 6950s whacking in at 22,209 in the 3D Mark.
Yeah.
So
it's
a good
really
4,000
really
more than the one before it for a slight spec bump, and it's jumped over the 3090 Ti.
Which is, you're right. But again, benchmarks always take with a pinch of salt. They're not real world, are they?
They're not. But I can't tie that huge jump to that small spec increase.
No, I agree with you.
Take with a pinch of salt here until proper reviews are out.
Yeah, I was going to say, are we looking, is there some drivers here that we're not aware of? Is there other elements that are not, being shown here? There's got to be perhaps a software element to this, surely.
So, yeah, some optimization going on.
Yeah, you wouldn't get that from anything, purely just that minor spec bump in it. But if it is as good as that, it's definitely another competitive card in the market. We are still very short of these. It says they're available through, isn't it, the web store for the reference cards? The AMD web store, but third-party OEMs will have them at some point. But I mean, it's like every other card. It's probably easier to find a unicorn than it is.
They are becoming more readily available and cheaper. Obviously,
but the high-end ones, though,
Well, we bought a 3070 Ti at close to retail, I'm going to say. Not significantly more, about £100 more than the suggested retail price.
Oh, I know.
And it was shipped next day. So, I mean, we've seen them in double or triple the price, haven't we, on eBay?
That's the problem. eBay prices versus reality obviously are always high, but I mean, it is a
it's coming down. It's starting to return to normal, but it's not there yet.
Sure, it's not there yet, especially these high-end cards. But then again, if you're paying over £1,000, dollars, pesos, Martian bucks for it, those kind of cards aren't going to be too popular, are they? They're going to be limited in number. But it'd be good to see some 3070s and 3080s in general circulation in bigger numbers. That would be
that's what I've seen. The retail on the 3080 was only $699.
That had dropped. I will give you that.
I was
I saw.
Whoa, man! If I could have got one for $699, I would have had one.
wasn't a couple of the retailers, wasn't it, Scan or Overclockers in the UK, where they had a few of those in stock, didn't they?
Yeah.
For a bit. Obviously, other vendors are available, but they are there. You're right. It's probably wrong of me to say that they're not as popular, but yeah, they're not certainly like we were seeing, pre-pandemic levels, if that makes sense, is it?
No, it got crazy for a while.
Yeah, but right then. So before we open up the Tech Rant Rumor Mill, wanted to talk about this brand new Unreal Engine 5 tech demo that's just dropped, isn't it? It's been all over the web at the moment. And
as you mentioned, even over the BBC News has shown it.
Yeah, and it's a rendering created by a 3D Italian artist called Lorenzo Drago, who's he's posted it to YouTube, and we'll have the link to it in the show notes. I must call him out because it's his work, nobody else's. Yep. But it's an amazing render of, is it a Japanese train station?
It is. Toyoma in Japan, their train station.
Yeah, and it's kind of the best way to describe it is it looks like, to start with, isn't it, a daylight? Somebody's got a video camera and they're panning across.
They're on their phone kind of thing, aren't they?
Yeah, phone camera. Yeah. That's probably the best way. Yeah, phone camera panning across the train station in daylight. And for those first few seconds, at least, you'd have no idea. I think if you were quickly shown it, that it wasn't real, would you? Apart from the fact there's nobody around it. It's empty, isn't it? There's nobody.
There's no people. It's an empty train station.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it does look so real. They're using that new, is it the Lumen capabilities of the Unreal 5 engine, which handles all the lighting and stuff like that.
Well, that's the thing. The lighting is when it flicks the dark, doesn't it? On a kind of
it suddenly flicks the dark, and you've got what looks like a very eerie, abandoned train station. I was actually expecting like zombies to jump out, like Resident Evil kind of thing. It wasn't. There's no scary jumps in it. It was just showing the night and day and the different lighting effects, and they bring out what looks like a torch, and they're shining it around, but it does look very, very realistic.
I have to say, I mean, when after you've watched it a couple of times, you do, then you know it, and your brain knows it's not real. You start to realize that, don't you?
Bring up the telltale stuff, don't you? Yeah.
But it is scarily realistic, and if that's where game development could go, especially on that Unreal 5 engine. Interestingly, though, apparently, he rendered it at 7 frames a second, and then sped it up in the post edit.
Oh, okay, interesting.
Yeah. I'm guessing because of the amount of time taken to render it. Probably,
I'm guessing this wasn't a real time render. This was but
render. It looks. I mean, it's not horrifying. It's not the right word, but you're right. When it flicked to dark, I mean, that could have been a scene from a Resident Evil game, or Half-Life.
Could you imagine the next Resident Evil looking like that, man?
God, a terrifier. I mean,
I had nightmares time every time I played it.
I mean, I had nightmares the first time I played Resident Evil 1, back in 1997.
The original one. If you go back and look at it now, and you're like, "What was I scared
of?" Christ, I show it to my kids now. They'd be like, "Dad, what is this?" But back then, we hadn't got games. There wasn't games like that, was there? There was nobody doing that kind of.
Not ones that you could interact with, and then things would jump out and scare you. It was all kind of new, wasn't it?
Exactly. It was mental. And what we see now with these games, I mean, it could have been. It also reminded me a bit of Half-Life. Kind of Half-Life 2 style piece.
Oh yes, I know. What was the one they brought out after Half-Life 2? It was a kind of add-on at the end, wasn't it? Lost Coast.
Yes, that was a tech demo, wasn't it, as well?
Yeah, that's what it looked like to me. That's what it reminded me of, the Lost Coast kind of thing.
The Lost Coast, that was right. It was a tech demo that they then released as a kind of a mini playable add-on, didn't they? For it. It did have elements of that, yeah. Very, very, very impressive. I mean, granted, this was just tech demo, but yeah, if this is where we're going, as I said, man, I don't want to be sat playing that on my own at night. But we'll link in the show notes. It is fantastic. Take a couple of minutes to watch it.
Definitely worth a watch.
You'll see what we're on about. Right then, let's get ready to open the Tech Rant Rumor Mill. So, Carl, there's just what I've had a look. Carl, there's only one rumor in the pot here. What's going on?
I know, we were a bit kind of short on rumors. I had rumors, but then they turned into real stories before we started the podcast. I was like, okay, well, never mind. That wasn't a rumor for long. But yeah, this has been doing the rounds. It came out shortly after we did the podcast last week, didn't it? That yes, Ming-Chi Kuo, he is now claiming that not this iPhone, not the 14, but the 15 will be getting USB-C, hasn't he?
Apparently so, isn't it? So based on information he's seen around the supply chain, isn't it? That's where they're getting this information from.
He
So,
did.
are we shocked? Realistically, are we shocked?
Well, I know somebody who it is. I mean, I was watching the tweets after, and poor old John Prosser. So you remember when he shaved his eyebrows off last? Well, someone dug up a tweet of where he said the iPhone will never ever have a USB-C, and if it does, I will not only shave off my eyebrows but all my hair.
That's right. Yeah, I was just going to say to you, I saw that. Yeah, I saw that on another, or heard it on another podcast, I should say. Somebody was laughing about it the same as well.
So yeah, he's currently prepping the razor.
Yeah. Yes. Look, we've talked about this at length, especially around the EU regulation piece, didn't we? Around the Digital Services and Digital Markets Act and all that kind of stuff. And I do see the value in this at some point. I mean, Lightning's great. You know, Apple make a lot of money out of the MiFi licensing program, don't they?
They do.
But, you know, as we've talked about, having one cable that fits everything just makes life so much easier.
One cable to rule them all. Yes.
One cable to rule them all. And USB-C has got far greater bandwidth than Lightning has. I'm sure they probably could have upgraded Lightning, to be honest.
Lightning is only USB 2.
Well, I was saying they probably could have done a new iteration of it.
USB 3, yeah, definitely.
But given where we are with it, and given the fact that they've got USB-C on other devices now in the ecosystem, why would you not? That's my point.
On basically every other device in the ecosystem, other than
since 2018, wasn't it? If I remember rightly.
And I think the iPad still Lightning, isn't it?
Yeah. So I'm not surprised by this, but he's saying what he reckons. How long is it? I think 1 to 2 years is potential, isn't it? Around.
Yeah. So not this September after for the iPhone 15.
So I don't know. I mean, I'm not disappointed by it. I think it'll make a lot of sense. You know, he's suspecting. I think he reckons, isn't it, by 23? So iPhone 15. The iPhone 15, isn't it? Yeah, could have USB. But I mean, Apple have also talked, or not Apple themselves, but there's been rumors that, don't forget, that they'll go portless, wasn't it? That was the other element.
Yes, indeed.
I think USB-C is far more likely to have USB-C than it is go portless within 5 years. I think reality.
Yeah, I think portless is still not going to happen just yet.
No. I think this is far more likely given where they are. And, you know, look, what's USB-C going to give us? Well, it's going to give us standardization. It's going to keep Apple regulator happy. It's going to give you greater bandwidth, faster charging, greater bandwidth, higher wattage, isn't it?
Accessories. Potential to actually plug accessories in.
Yes, exactly.
More standard accessories. You know, you can't really plug accessories into it, but more generic ones. I could plug a network adapter in. I could plug an external hard drive in.
Yeah. I think that's the thing, isn't it? You know, this is, in my view, this is a good move, and one that actually we should be taking probably with actually not a pinch of salt necessarily. I think, you know, it should be seen as actually probably reality, but yeah, definitely not going to happen for the 14. If it does, I'm not going to shave my head. I will eat my hat, not. But I think 15 is probably.
You heard it here, guys. We'll have videos.
My name is not John. No, my name is John Prosser. Oh, John, well, I'm waiting to see that. But it'd be interesting to see, talking of rumors though, what happens in 3 weeks' time at Dub. To see whether or not there's any hardware drop there, whether there's any given on what's coming next. Because sometimes they tease hardware, don't they, in terms of
the Mac Pro. Come on, the Mac Pro.
I think the Mac Pro could be teased. It'll also be interesting to see whether or not there's any of the iPad OS developments that would give it more of a desktop / multi.
That rumor that you plug in a keyboard and mouse and you get actual windows you can drag around.
Yeah, exactly. But, and don't forget though, with USB-C, just to come back on a point I've just remembered, is that Apple are one of the developers for it, weren't they? They're one of the part of that development committee and team that. So yeah, it just seems odd why they wouldn't do it. But yeah, let's see. So WWDC then 3 weeks time. Plenty of stuff coming up there.
Google event next week.
Google event.
It's happened already.
iO's happened already.
We'll update you on the Google stuff.
We're gonna have next week as an IO special to cover most of the stories there. Once we've had time to digest them, so we're going to cover the IO and the updates there. A bit of a tease, Pixel, but not the Pixel you think it is.
Yeah. Nope.
So we'll be back with that, and that will be episode 88 then. We'll be back next week, and of course you can find us wherever you get your podcasts. So you're listening to one now, but we're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, through our hosting provider Anchor. Please like, share, subscribe, however you want to do it. And of course you can find us on Twitter at Weekly Tech Rant and techrant.online for our show notes, of course. And with that, I've been Jay.
I've been Carl. Have a good one, everyone.